Street, can you hear me?
I can. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our setting sites session. Just had a few technical glitches, so my apologies for a little bit of the late start. But my name is Street. I'm our specialist for educational and equity and inclusion initiatives at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, as well as a proud Badger alumna. James, I will hand it over to you. Introduce yourself.
Greetings, everybody. Glad to be here. I'm the admissions counselor at UW-Madison on the diversity team.
Okay, well, James will be leading the session today. I'm going through our content with the PowerPoint. I'll be hanging out in the background. At any point during the presentation, if you have questions, feel free to use the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. It has a Q&A with 2 chat bubbles. Feel free to enter any questions you have there, and I'll be answering those in the background during the session. And then, of course, afterward, we're both going to be able to answer questions that you have live as well. So I will hand it over to James to go ahead and get started.
I'm going to share my screen. Well, everybody, I'm glad you could be here again. I'm sure that we have everybody here that's for today's presentation, so I'll dive in right into the presentation. For our setting sites program, we'll be diving into navigating your college applications. I'm just trying to, 1 second, please. Let me just move this around. We're going to be here this evening for the next hour, diving into content on how navigating your college options. We're hoping to touch on a wide scope of things to consider when you're thinking on where to go to college, your next steps, and things to keep in mind when finding the best fit to pursue your undergraduate education. I'll be diving into today's presentation, but if you do find that you have questions on the content while I'm presenting, feel free to use the chat feature at the bottom of your screen, and I'll make sure we answer any questions during the presentation, or there will be time at the end for Q&A. We'll cover any questions that are still left. With that said, I'll be moving on to the next slide. So when you're thinking about college options, there's a couple things that might come to mind. Some of the particularities that we will be touching on today are the types of colleges out there. What are the options available, and some things to consider when looking at schools. What are the options available, and some things to consider are looking at the schools, such as student life, to involvement opportunities, to what majors you might be interested in. Also, I'll also be covering the phenomenon on undermatching and how that relates to you and how that might inform your college search. I'll also discuss funding and how that plays a role in where you might consider going for your undergraduate education. Also take some time to break down the lingo that comes with decisions and deadlines, and really understanding the college process in terms of applying and what to expect. Also, I'll touch on where you can find additional support outside of this session, or as questions come up during your college search or during the application process. So let's begin on discussing the types of colleges out there. We have public, private, and for-profit. The reason I want to bring this up to your attention is because it often touches on the student experience, such as cost of your education and the types of resources that might be available to you while you're pursuing an education at the respective college or university campus. To begin, let's look at public institutions. Public institutions are often funded locally or through the state level, where there's a decrease of cost of attendance for residents within that respective state. There's often more federal funding focused within public institutions as well. Depending on weighing your pros and cons, you definitely are able to secure a cheaper cost for your undergraduate education by attending a public institution. Next, let's move to private institutions. When it comes to private institutions, these are institutions that rely mainly on tuition and fees and private donations as well. With private donations, depending on the school or college, they may be able to secure a larger financial aid package for students. Again, that depends really because they may have a higher tuition and it may cost you more. So it's really about weighing your options and seeing what's available to you. Lastly, we have for-profit institutions. These are businesses that offer a wide variety of degree programs geared towards specific career paths. They do have a very focused curriculum often. So when you are pursuing education with a for-profit institution, it's important to keep in mind that those credits may not transfer to a public or private institution. So depending on how you may anticipate your long-term pathway for your undergraduate education and the direction you may take, it's good to keep in mind that some of these credits may not transfer. However, if you plan on completing your degree solely at a for-profit institution, then you would be able to graduate and secure a degree under their curriculum. They usually have a higher cost of tuition as well. Moving on to the types of degrees, most of these institutions are going to offer two types of degrees, a 4-year degree and 2-year degrees. 4-year degrees are programs that will lead to a bachelor's degree. Anything from your typical college or university, whether public or private, and some for-profit have a 4-year degree as well. These institutions are often going to have a larger breadth and depth of majors and degree programs you can pursue and consider as they are intended to go towards a bachelor's degree. 2-year institutions are programs that typically lead towards certification or an associate's degree. An associate's degree is the halfway point towards a bachelor's degree, which is a great option for those that want to get a head start on credits and then transfer to a university for a 4-year degree like myself. So these are two types of degree programs that are typically available. Depending on what kind of career pathways or options you're considering post-high school, they are both great options to pursue and something to keep in mind. It's important to consider which type of degree will best set you up for success in your intended career path. The next layer is looking at what are the academic offerings. Are there a wide scope of breadth and depth of majors available to you? Is there a specific unique career pathway that you are looking to pursue that is only available at select institutions or types of institutions? Or you may not know what you want to major in and maybe completely undecided, and that's okay. It is beneficial to have an idea of what your interests are now and where you see yourself in the long term to land at an institution that can support your exploration as you navigate your different options. Or you might have a specific path you have in mind upon completing high school that you are pursuing your education that offers specific curriculum that will help you reach that goal. So let's look at these different types of academic offerings. First, we have a liberal arts, which is the first type of colleges I'll cover. These are typically private institutions that specialize in the broad curriculum of liberal arts. They offer a wide variety of bachelor's degree programs typically, and a small amount of community colleges offer this degree as well in liberal arts. So there's quite a bit out there. Do you have a specialty, unique program that falls under liberal arts? It definitely is a great college to look into, just based on the variety of majors available. Universities are typically larger. There are public and private ones. Universities have multiple schools and colleges within the university. For example, at UW-Madison, we have our liberal arts college, but we also have the College of Engineering and the School of Business, et cetera, within our institution. Typically, universities offer a larger breadth and depth of different degree pathways. Our bachelor's, liberal arts colleges might be a good fit, as there are many options to explore. For community colleges, there are typically 2-year degrees that are usually more affordable for some students or who want to get their initial credits out of the way. This can be a great option as well. So pursuing a community college degree program, if there is an associate degree that leads to the career path you are looking for, this could be a great fit for you. Or if you want to start at a community college and transfer to a university or liberal arts college, this also can be a great pathway. It all depends on your circumstances and needs. The main thing, if you are considering transferring, is to keep in mind where your end goal may be, or the institution you want to transfer to make sure your credits transfer there. Community colleges are often available locally and are easily accessible. They typically offer degree programs that transfer towards a 4-year institution. Moving on, we have vocational and technical colleges. These are institutions that have a unique specialized pathways towards particular careers. Anything from culinary arts, being a firefighter, a medical assistant, dental hygienist, etc. There's a lot of opportunities in vocational and technical schools that can prepare you with skills and the foundation to help you find success within those career pathways. So if there's a vocational or technical path that you are passionate about, this would be a great fit for you. You can also pursue an interest within the technical and vocational grounds, and additionally pursue an associate's or bachelor's degree. The choices are up to you. Moving on, we have unique colleges with a unique focus. For example, there's Haskell University that has a cultural focus for Native Americans, and there's also historically Black colleges that students can attend. There are also religious affiliated institutions, or also single-sex colleges, such as and all women's colleges that students can attend as well. If these experiences are what you are looking for, these would be some great options to look into. Now that we talked about the different kinds of schools out there, some other things to consider when selecting a college or university are academic quality, involvement, opportunities, professional development, and postgraduate goal alignments, the student body, values, and location. Excuse the typo on this presentation, I'll have to fix that. Looking at the academic quality, it's the university's ranking and specialization in major areas, other areas of academic interest, involvement opportunities such as study abroad. During my undergraduate, I studied abroad in Cuba. It was definitely a great experience, and I would suggest students consider looking into studying abroad as part of their educational experience. An important thing to consider when making this decision is the definitive points that make an institution a yes or a no. This will help you narrow down your options and find your best matches for the experience you are looking for and what to invest in. So it's important to consider what outcome you want for your student experience. That will help you narrow what colleges or universities that would be the best fit for you. When it comes to professional development, it's important to think of yourself holistically, not just as a student or personally, but also considering the professional component as well. Really thinking about how this institution is going to give you the skills and confidence to moving into the workforce post-graduation. Also look into if this institution has a professional development where there's career or job counseling, skill development workshops, places that will help with your resume and cover letter. There may be career counseling available on what careers might be available once you've attained your degree. This could really open doors that you may not be aware of as a possible career pathway. For example, I got my degree in American Indian Studies, and that's opened so many doors for myself. People were wondering what I was going to do with an American Indian degree, I said, let me figure that out. I was working at the Milwaukee Public Museum. I've been a scholarship coordinator for the Forest County Potawatomi Foundation, and now I'm an admissions counselor on the diversity team. So what degree you pursue could open many doors that, again, you may not be aware of. And seeking out career counseling is an important component that a higher institution should have and can be vital for setting up your success. One thing that could be more challenging is figuring out what your postgraduate goals are. Do you want to pursue a master's degree or move forward with a doctor's degree? Do you envision yourself pursuing these type of degrees? If so, it's important to consider if this institution is a good place to start, or do you want to transfer to a different institution and pursue those degrees there? Some things to consider when looking at post-graduation goals is what might you want to do after graduation, and what skills and experience do you need to prepare? Does this institution offer that? Is it okay? It's okay to not entirely know, but it's worth thinking of what experience, resources, and academic and professional foundations you may need to get there, and if the educational institution you're considering has these resources available. Also, the student body will also inform your experience as well. These are your peers who will be learning with you and building up your network. Also, some important factors about the student body to consider is demographics, how campus culture is, the overall student experience. Are you looking for a unique experience different than yours, or are you looking for a campus community that you can relate to? And there's no right or wrong answer to what experience you are looking for on engagement opportunities. When it comes to values, a lot of colleges and universities have mission statements or areas that they focus in and have a guiding principles for their entire institution. For example, at UW-Madison, we have the Wisconsin Idea, which is more like a philosophy on how students are going to use their education to make a positive impact outside the classroom. A university's mission and values are important. And what is their core of their teaching and community at their institution as a whole? So it's just an important thing to consider when looking at institutions. What are their values? What do they prioritize? And if that's a good fit for you. Lastly, we have location. If you choose to go to an institution that's far from home or close, or to a different country or a place that's across the world. It could be a rural environment, suburban or urban. Again, there's no right or wrong answer for this, and it's really what works best for you. Moving on, I'd like to discuss the phenomenon of undermatching. What is undermatching is when we see students that self-select out from competing, from applying from competitive and ranked colleges. Some other barriers are how we perceive our financial aid options available, the cost of tuition. There's also limited guidance in a college search. If you're a first generation college student like myself, that could be a barrier as well. Or you might have be intimidated or overwhelmed with the college application process. It's important to remember and to understand that you have unique talents and experiences that are valuable to these higher educational institutions. And moving forward, when applying to colleges, don't sell yourself short. It's important to always keep in mind that when applying to these different institutions, your experiences and knowledge count towards helping you succeed at these universities. So it's important not to self-select yourself out and apply to these different universities. We also have financial aid resources such as the free application for federal student aid. There's college application fee waivers out there. By all means, I want to urge students to see if they can get a fee waiver to waive the cost of applying to these institutions. There's also scholarships, different grants available, and financial aid and financial wellness workshops. Institutions also have employment opportunities for students that may be available for them to apply to. It's important to keep in mind that these resources are out there and available for students. So let's move on to navigating deadlines. There's a regular admissions, specific deadlines. For example, at UW-Madison, our application process opens up on August 1st or September 1st and closes in October, I believe, on the day. But that's for early access or early decision. These regular admission decisions changes at different universities, so it's important to keep that in mind when looking at the institution you're interested in. Some institutions have rolling admissions where a student can apply year-round. There's also open admissions that if you're a state resident and you scored a certain test score on ACT or GRE or a certain percentage in your high school ranking, you will be automatically admitted. So looking at early decision, this is a binding admission decision where if you apply and you are admitted, you must attend that school. Next, we have early action, which is a non-binding admissions decision. And lastly, we have guaranteed admission. Some state schools guarantee admission for students who meet certain criteria, which I covered. Next, let's look at navigating decisions. If you get admitted, you'll receive notification and congratulations, you're admitted to the institution that you're interested in. Again, it's always good to apply to different universities and see what your options are. There's also, unfortunately, the decision of a deny. If you apply and get a notification that you were denied admittance, there might be other ways to get admitted to that university, such as transfer pathways. If you get a decision of defer, that's neither an admit or deny. It simply means that the university is holding on to your application and is still waiting to move forward with a decision. They may ask for your mid-year senior grades in high school to see how you're doing academically. And then lastly, we have a wait list. A wait list is for students that could potentially be admitted depending if other students choose to go to another university or college. So some things to consider when applying to college is where you can find support. Ask a college admissions counselor. Reach out to the universities you're interested in and see if you can get in touch with an admissions counselor. I'm sure there's counselors at these institutions that will take out the time to meet with you and discuss some of your options on applying to their universities. You also have a high school, college, or guidance counselor. They're a great resource to reach out to. You could ask them their advice on applying, see what suggestions they have when applying, or finding a teacher or mentor will also help on moving forward with the application to universities that you're interested in. Lastly, we have a financial aid advisor. Each university has a financial aid department, and they're also a great resource on navigating college interest and navigating which colleges will best set you up with a financial aid package. Also a great resource to check out. And that looks like that's a wrap on the presentation. If you have any further questions, we have our website available, admissions.wisc.edu. Our virtual visits can be set up at visitbucky.wisc.edu. We also have our email on wisconsin@admissionswisc.edu, or feel free to call us at 608-262-3961.
At this point, if you all have any questions about any content we covered, any content that wasn't covered, we're happy to address those. You can use the chat feature as well. So there's one question that's in the chat, and that's if we offer guaranteed admission, and if so, what's the criteria? At the University of Wisconsin-Madison specifically, we do not have guaranteed admission. We have our early action period and our regular decision period. Early action is a great way to indicate you are considering us as a top choice. So that we do recommend students apply in that early action period. Most schools and colleges, the early period is a little bit more a way to show your strong interest in that school or college. And then regular decision is still an option as well. But guaranteed admissions does happen at some select schools and colleges. So that's something to keep note of when you are building your college list, but we specifically do not. That would be early action or other questions that you all have. No such thing as a bad question.
I'm just going to drop my email in the chat. If anyone else has any other questions, they can think of a later time. Feel free to send me an email.
So there's another question that Scott put in the chat, and is if we at the University of Wisconsin-Madison do early decision? We do not. So we just have early action, which means it's non-binding. So you'll be able to still have till May 1, but you will get that decision early, and you can, again, indicate a little bit more strongly that we are a top choice for you through that early action decision process. But early decision for some schools or colleges is binding. So when you do apply early decision, they expect that if you do get an admissions offer, you would accept that and decline the rest of your institutions. So it's good to weigh that when considering the different schools and colleges, what periods you'll apply for, since some will be binding through that early decision or may not allow you to apply to other schools early. But if you apply to us early action, you can still apply early action to other schools and colleges as well. And again, still have till May 1 to weigh your pros and cons for every school and college and make that final decision. Great question. Another question came in, if there is certain criteria that we have for our early action period. The criteria is the same across the board at UW-Madison. So the same materials that we require of all applicants are what we're going to consider holistically when evaluating your application. So every student's going to submit their core information, the 2 essays, test optional. We will be for the next 2 years still, and we'll consider beyond that. So you may or may not submit a test score if that's of your preference. It's not required. And then a letter of recommendation as well. And then with that, you'll submit your extracurriculars. So every student, we do list those materials on our website. It's the same things we evaluate no matter what period that you're applying specifically, whether it's early action or regular decision. Good question. Other questions that are coming to mind? We've got another of if we recommend submitting SAT scores or ACT scores. This one's really going to depend on your best judgment. And I know that's not always the thing that folks want to hear. They want a clear-cut answer, but pretty much my best advice is if you feel it's going to enhance your application. So we do review holistically. So if it's a positive add, a little extra sparkle that you want to include in your application, by all means, feel free to include your test score if you have one, but it will in no way negatively impact you if you don't submit one. So it's not going to be, a negative mark or anything when we're looking at your application. Consider it just a positive add if you'd like to include it, but you don't have to. We don't look at test scores as the predominant thing in your application. Your academic performance and how you're doing in high school and the rigor that you're taking and progressing to those challenging courses are a core part of our application process. But again, it's holistic. So a test score is not going to be the deciding factor on an applicant. But again, if you feel it's a positive add, by all means, feel free to include it. But if you don't include one, it's not going to prevent you from being admitted or, again, have a negative impact on your application as a whole. So good question. For the number of letters of recommendation that are required for the University of Wisconsin-Madison, we just require one, and specifically from a teacher. So it should be a teacher that's taught you and can really speak to your academic abilities. If you want to submit more than one, you are welcome to do so, but it's not required. Again, every school and college may have a different amount of letter of recommendation. So just make note of that when you're making your college list. Some may have one, might have one particular one like we have for teachers. Others may have a couple more from specific individuals. So just making a note of that, but just one from a teacher for us will wrap up your application. When it comes to applying to college, there's a question if you should feel like you need to decide your major. It doesn't hurt to have something in mind, a starting point, something you'd like to explore, but you don't have to have it all figured out. A lot of students, believe it or not, will change their mind when they get to college and change it a couple times probably when they get here. So even if a student's applying, you have your first, second choice major on your application, you can start out intending in that track and really take additional courses to get a sense if that's really what you're passionate about and want to pursue. And you may come to campus and find that's exactly what you want to do, perfect, and continue in that. Or you might take some introductory courses and decide, maybe I'm more passionate about something else, and can change your mind once you're on campus. So definitely don't feel like you have to have it all figured out and definitively tied to that. You can also apply undecided if you just want to explore right away when you get here. So that's a perfectly okay option. What you choose for your major, at least for us, has no negative impact in your application process. It's just a great way to indicate where you'd like to start out when you begin your college journey. So overall, it's good to explore your options in advance, get a sense of what you might be passionate about or curious to take in your first year. But again, don't feel like you have to have it all figured out. And especially at UW-Madison, we have a wealth of advisors that'll be a great resource for you to help you figure out what's your passion and interest and how that translates to a wide variety of majors and academic opportunities that you can pursue while you're here. Great questions so far. Any others that are coming to mind that you're thinking about? So it looks like that might be all of the questions. Well, as James noted, he dropped his email in the chat, so feel free to reach out. We have our main email too. You can always reach out to our office. We're more than happy to be a resource and support for you all, no matter where you are in your college search process. And again, you can check out additional resources and upcoming events we have on our Visit Bucky portal when you registered for this. We will also have another iteration of our Set to Apply. So if you're wanting to dive into some great ways to create a strong application for the different schools and colleges you're applying to, or even UW-Madison, that'll be a great next step in our process to learn a little bit more about how to create a strong application as a whole. But again, feel free to check out all of our upcoming events. Well, thank you all so much for joining us on this evening, and we hope we'll be in touch with you all in the future. So thank you so much, and on Wisconsin.
Thanks for coming.